Our third breakout was titled Using Research to Inform Practice with Comorbid or Complex Client Presentations. And we have Latoya, right, here to report back. Thank you very much.
So Art talked about a few things. And one of the things we talked about were really looking at the complexities that clients present to practitioners and to clinicians, and really acknowledging those different ones in terms of, and we had some examples like stressors in terms of poverty and food availability and readiness for change and client insight and just managing how our clients have to manage these competing demands and kind of including that within the research. And we talked about how we need to document those complexities for our client population. We also talked about how to make the research relevant for practitioners and really acknowledging whether or not what was working, really as well as what doesn't work, and whether in terms of being what's ethical or what's causing harm or what's doing no harm, to really kind of help clinicians really understand what's working on both ends of the spectrum and really acknowledging what you tried that might not be beneficial because someone else might be trying it somewhere else too. We also talked about really the complexities or the competition of building on the different demands. So we talked about the competing demands of the researchers, the agencies, as well as the clients, and how we can use researchers as a tool to facilitate change within the agencies, and as well as working with within the process of the clinical practitioners. We talked about once the interventions are created, how we can use those and how we can really disseminate agencies, how we can really disseminate that information to different agencies. And that means the possibility of making it really relevant, making it translatable in ways that people can understand, and going to the agency and presenting it to a population there, presenting it to a clinical staff there to really help make it more user-friendly, rather than just publishing in a journal that people might not have access to. We also talked about just the complexities in social work as a field and how we might want to create a paradigm of research that's congruent with social work values, because there's, in a sense, there's a dilution of social work identity as a job role, and how we can empower our clients to really value the presence of a social worker if we don't necessarily present that value in a congruent way or in a consistent way amongst ourselves and within research versus practice versus client expectations. And then we were talking about really putting research more into the mainstream media in terms of doing possible op-eds or reading like blogs, or really helping it to be accessible to where participants and clients and consumers and practitioners or clinicians are. And then we really talked about just the flexibility and adaptability of the interventions that we create to acknowledge the complexities that clients face, and how we can really kind of start from a bottoms-up approach and really starting where the client is in terms of an intervention that kind of addresses the different client needs on the clinical level.
Thank you, Latoya. Thank you to your group for sharing your recommendations with us. Our next group was Breakout number 4, Bridging the Gap, Organizational and Administrative Issues. And they're all going to present together.
So we decided to take a team approach to presenting this, and we actually had a really nice majority of practitioners in our group, ranging from clinical to administrative levels. And our group really first began with the idea of first impressions of what was needed to really bridge the gap between among organizational and administrative issues, from research to practice. And so the group generated over 30 first impressions, and what we did was go through those 30 items to really talk about themes that were pretty consistent. And so I'm going to talk about the first one, and then Barbara will talk about the second, and Frederica will talk about the third. Frederica and I are both from the University of Houston, both PhD students here, and Barbara's from Arrow. So the first one I should back up and say that our discussion really ranged from individuals having access to the research to questions about if administrators would even find some of the support strategies that we're suggesting as useful. Like why would they maybe even care? And so the first one, the administrator's key roles, we thought, are to really ask questions, good questions, questions that can be researched, to provide leadership in convening practitioners and research, so helping to actually formulate those partnerships, manage in data-driven ways, so using data to actually improve services, and then also to streamline the data being collected to be responsive to our questions and to our clients. So that's really the first sort of support strategy we came up with.
Okay, the second support strategy we came up with was creating a learning culture. And again, that's asking questions not just to the administrators, but to all roles of the agency, so everyone can have those questions answered. And that's collaborating across the agency. If one agency has the resources or the answers to one problem, why can't agencies talk to each other? Next is collaborating within the agency, both vertically and horizontally, not just from different program to program or department to department, but up and down as well. Deliberately build connections with your own culture for research. So building the connections within the community that you have, if your administrators aren't giving you that support to find that research, find other people in the community that are part of your culture that do have that desire to go do research and connect with them. And the last one is language, making sure that you're using common language and talking about the same thing and taking time to translate what that language is saying. If you're talking with a researcher and a practitioner, what you're talking about may not always be the exact same thing, even if you're using the same terminology. Second one.
Okay, so the third list that we came up with concerning the role of administrators and all of those throughout the agency as far as bridging the gap between administration and practice and research is dialoguing for learning and not strictly reporting. Making sure that our conversations and the different meetings that we're having, the different ways that we're collecting data, those things are bringing about learning and not specifically just for compliance issues. Clarifying points of shared value and relevance. Show and tell. I apologize, I did not write this. And Bowen did give the disclaimer that he was writing fast because he was getting ready to leave on the last page. So show and tell and creating places to kindle creative sparks. And that's centered around the conversation we had about different silos in your agency, your research department, departments that work with the specific clientele and on your administration, but making sure that all of those people across departments are having conversations with each other, not in a forced setting, rather an environment that creates sparks of conversation that yields mutual benefits. Focusing on service users and not funders. Building partnerships and critical friendship networks that break isolation and provide benefits. Again, that's the collaboration idea, but not only within your agency, but outside your agency, with other agencies that involve research or have components that you don't have to bring information to your administrators, because some of our administrators may not be tapped into theory or research that's available. So if there's no time for them to be involved in that, then we can have those critical friendships and relationships that we're able to share information with. So that's our list.
All right, thank you very much to all of you. You've got one class?